You don't need frontier models. I have a new group on Facebook called GPT-4, all by Steve Hovland. GPT-4 All is a free program that lets you run AI models on almost any PC or Mac. It lets you keep your private data private. Executive summary. Tech monopolies claim businesses need massive frontier AI models to survive. This narrative creates an expensive, distrustful environment where companies accidentally donate intellectual property to cloud providers. In reality, smaller curated models trained on clean data perform just as well. Furthermore, a massive surplus of unused GPU hardware will soon lower local computing costs. Organizations should reject bloated cloud models. By adopting local, model-agnostic tools, businesses secure their data and achieve true operational independence. Article: Tech leaders want us to believe a specific myth. They claim we need their massive frontier artificial intelligence models to survive. Because of this narrative, society keeps pouring billions of dollars into financial black holes. Silicon Valley tells us that bigger is always better. If a 2 trillion parameter model cannot solve the world's problems, they promise a 4 trillion parameter model will do the trick. If that fails, they point toward a 10 trillion parameter model. Some executives seemingly want to cover the entire planet in massive data centers. This endless expansion relies on hype rather than practical reality. The tech industry has created an artificial sense of urgency to justify its massive spending. However, the tide is turning as businesses realize that bigger does not mean better for everyday operations. The reality of the hardware glut. The public narrative promises an endless shortage of computer chips. The physical reality on the ground tells a completely different story. Tech companies have purchased thousands of brand new graphics processing units, GPUs, for data centers. Yet workers have not even unboxed these expensive cards. Many companies bought hardware before building the actual facilities to house them. In other cases, developers built the data centers, but never powered them up due to energy constraints. These unused cards will not sit in warehouses forever. Eventually, these older generation cards like the NVIDIA H100 and H200 will flood the market. Companies will sell them at deeply reduced prices to clear out inventory. While these chips are no longer the absolute newest tech, they remain incredibly powerful. A business does not need a massive server farm to run efficient AI. In fact, 1 or 2 of these cards will easily meet the daily needs of most average companies. This impending hardware surplus will soon allow organizations to deploy local AI at a fraction of current costs. The breakdown of trust and intellectual property. Recently, Palantir CEO Alex Karp had a visible moment of frustration during a CNBC interview. His outburst reflected a widespread, growing anger regarding frontier models. Much of this rage stems from a simple, unsettling realization about data privacy. Anything you type into a cloud-based frontier model becomes fuel for that model. The tech companies actively use your inputs to train their future systems. In effect, corporate users are constantly donating their valuable intellectual property to wealthy AI laboratories. Karp described a fundamental breakdown of trust between major enterprise clients and prominent AI laboratories. He argued that current AI sales tactics focus entirely on irresponsible overpromising. Providers charge clients based on the number of text tokens they process. They do not deliver actual value to critical infrastructure or the military. Because of this setup, businesses rightfully fear losing their operational advantages. Model providers might accidentally store or replicate sensitive corporate data. To address these valid security concerns, Palantir partnered with NVIDIA. They created an application layer called an ontology to ensure safety and precision. This specific approach allows organizations to maintain total control over their data, model weights, and compute resources. It stops businesses from outsourcing their critical decision-making to Silicon Valley. The future of AI depends heavily on rebuilding security through model-agnostic systems. These systems must always prioritize the sovereignty of the user. The alternative, local and curated models. Fortunately, businesses have an excellent alternative to the cloud. Organizations can use open-source tools like GPT-4all to change their workflow. These tools generate model weights locally on an organization's own hardware. Businesses can use in-house models or rent private models to process their data safely. This method keeps proprietary information completely inside the company walls. How data is exposed to risk. Cloud AI route. User data provided to cloud provider can be used for training. Risk. Local AI route. User data provided to local hardware gives you private output. Safe. Furthermore, frontier models are inefficient because they are bloated. Massive AI models are hungry for data, and they do not care where they find it. AI companies routinely scrape copyrighted material from the open web without permission. In some cases, courts have forced these companies to pay large fines. Stealing copyrighted material remains a serious legal crime, yet tech giants continue the practice. Frontier models contain vast amounts of data with absolutely zero business value. Their training sets include everything from social media arguments to recipes for oatmeal cookies. The creators of frontier models falsely assume that more data always makes a system smarter. This assumption is simply incorrect. When you enter text into a cloud model, the system translates those words into mathematical weights. The AI uses these weights to predict the next word in a sequence. Unfortunately, the cloud provider can also use those exact weights to train their public model. Your unique business insights quickly become part of a public product. We can see a better path forward through curated models. The IBM Granite series provides an excellent example of this cleaner approach. IBM engineers trained these models using clean, entirely legal data sets. The largest model in the Granite series uses only 34 billion parameters. This relatively small size teaches us an important lesson about AI development. It shows us how little data a system actually needs when the data is high quality. Comparing the two AI paths. Parameter size. Frontier models use 1+ trillion parameters, while curated models use only around 34 billion parameters. Data source. Frontier models rely on scraped web data, whereas curated models use clean, legal data. Hardware requirement. Frontier models require massive data centers, but curated models run on just 1 to 2 local GPUs. IP protection. Frontier models offer low protection due to data leakage risks, while curated models provide high protection behind a local wall. When you look at different model sizes from the same provider, the core logic usually stays identical. The primary difference is simply the sheer volume of training data. You do not need a trillion parameter model to write business reports or analyze spreadsheets. A targeted, well-trained smaller model will perform the exact same logic without the unnecessary baggage. Ethical implications of mass scale. The unchecked growth of frontier models also brings severe ethical consequences. Because these models require massive scale, their creators often ignore human suffering. For instance, documented reports show that military forces have used at least one prominent frontier model to facilitate the ongoing genocide in Gaza. Large tech companies often prioritize raw computing power over human ethics. They chase grand visions of artificial general intelligence while ignoring the immediate harms of their products. When software handles life or death decisions on a massive scale, accountability completely disappears. Businesses must question whether they want to financially support these unethical systems. By choosing local, specialized AI, your company avoids funding these global harms. Conclusion: you do not need to surrender your budget or your data to Silicon Valley. The promise of the frontier model is largely a marketing illusion. It serves the financial interests of a few powerful tech executives. Instead, look at the physical reality of the hardware market. Thousands of powerful GPU cards will soon enter the market at discounted rates. Highly efficient curated models like IBM Granite prove that smaller systems deliver excellent results. By running open source tools on local hardware, you protect your intellectual property. You also save your company from unnecessary subscription costs. True innovation does not require a 10 trillion parameter black box. It requires smart, secure, and controlled technology that serves your specific goals. Do you know that any private information you put into a cloud AI is used to train that AI? With local models, you can keep your private data private. Applications and models for local AI are available for free. You may be surprised at how powerful they are when loaded with your private data. I can help you set up a private AI on almost any PC or Mac. Contact me for a free demo. I have published more than 700 blogs on AI in the past 3 years. If you get value from these blogs, please consider joining my Patreon as a member at the $2, $4, or $8 level. https://www.patreon.com/Steve Hovland.